called me a doctor, and what doctors do is promote good health, right? So this minute, could you guys please stand up for a few seconds and stretch yourself?
I know.
Yes. Stretch. And I'll tell you why. You have to do that. All right, take a seat. Thank you. I'll tell you why. Before I go into what we're saying, which is in line with what we're going to talk about today. Studies have actually shown that as people of African descent, our muscle fibers are different. And because we're different, we don't produce what they call nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is a potent vasodilator that allows blood to flow into your muscles. So black people or people of African descent actually produce nitric oxide when they move. So that's why it's imperative that you have to move. So you just produce some nitric oxide and clap for yourself. Yeah, so you learned something today. So we're talking about the SDGs, and the reason why it's important for the gathering tonight. Two things I'll start with. The world has now become a global village, and that's for sure. And the future of science is female. The reason we're saying this is because there's a whole interconscious play of what it takes to achieve, the sustainable developmental growth projects. And for once, the whole world came together to come up with these items, 17 of them, which they felt was important to sustain, advance, and improve the quality of life of the average human being. Not just for people in government, but also for the entire planet, for everybody who lives here. So it has now become an agenda for everybody, not just those in government, like I said, or individuals or corporations, but for everybody on the planet Earth. And that's the reason why it became imperative that everybody contributing to this. Now, we, as of today, we live in a world of 7.something billion people. And if you stretch this down to Africa, 1.27, and some people say 1.3 billion people who are in Africa. And of course, Nigeria is the biggest, the most populous country in Africa, of a population of 200 million plus as of today.
I'm counting.
I'm counting, I said plus for today. And if you look at the structure of Africa, Africa is the youngest continent on earth. And the average age is about 19.6 as compared to everybody else. And if you look at that number, Nigeria is number 6. From 1 to 30 in Africa has the youngest population on earth. 1 to 30. So Nigeria is number 6 on that level. Number 1 is Niger, 2, Democratic Republic of Congo, 3 is Chad. If you look at the map of Africa, or Nigeria, Niger is right on top, and Chad is next to it right on top as well. And being the biggest economy in Africa, obviously, when there's a need, and we understand there's a global change of desertification, encroaching. The Sahara Desert is actually encroaching down to the Atlantic. In fact, studies show that within the last 10 years, we've lost over 20,000 acres of land. So what else do you expect? So people are going to migrate, people are going to move. So when we talk about people moving and all the, the whole issues, if you're, conversant with what's happening in Nigeria now with the herdsmen coming down, of course they're moving. And they're moving because of sometimes some of the things they don't even understand. It's climate change. These are some of the things that are pushing them down, looking for greener pastures, coming down to seek for food for their animals. So there's obviously going to be a clash with all of this going on. And of course, the other movement of youth, like I said, moving out because of desperation and the need. Now, 2015, the world came up together and said, you know what, we need to do something about this. And 193 countries, signed the treaty and said, you know what, by 2030, we should be able to achieve these 17 things. But are we achieving it yet? Are we on our way? Yeah, probably. A lot of people are doing so much to it, and some people are still lagging behind for a lot of reasons, either because they don't understand what it takes, or they have the capacity or the resources to achieve all the things that they need to achieve. So it's an obligation. But looking at this as an obligation, we also look at it as opportunity for us together to move and to grow. Because if each and every one of these little pieces begin to move together, we can achieve more together. And that's just the essence of where 193 countries came together to do this. Now, I looked at this in the sense of structures that I counted: food, health, employment, security, poverty alleviation, and climate. And one of the 17 things that they talked about was poverty eradication, climate change, and of course, equality. Giving equal chance for everybody to achieve their greatest potentials as possible. So when we talk about food, food is imperative, because without food, we cannot live. I know some of us may be hungry here today, and some people get hungry, they're not themselves when they get hungry. So we know that. And we know what's happening to the global market when there's lack of food. One of the biggest things that drive change and drive people to move is food, in search of food. So food security is a big issue. And how do we begin to achieve food security even at the elemental basic level? They always say every politics is local, but I also say every successful politics is even more local. So bringing down to the local level, where we come from, we call it local government area. Here they call it the county or the city stage. Now, how do we begin to achieve food security, especially in an environment where, like we have in Africa, where there's a whole lot of incapacitation and lack of resources, and even technological and social structure in place to achieve this. Now, we talk about crop. They're amazing young men, and that's why I gave the statistics earlier on of the youth in Africa. Great, young, dynamic young men and women who are doing exceedingly great work. I know of one, and I'll call her name, and I'll be very proud to call her name here tonight, Jane Odom. And her dissertation project that she's working on is to identify color-based diseases of crops using mapping and the internet. And she's worked on that, and I've seen some of the things she's done. What's the reason for this? Because so that when you have is applied on a global scale or on a market on a local level, you can go on and you download this app so that your cassava, when the disease, you can detect the onset of cassava or what virus or whatever is affecting that disease or that crop. So it's easy for you to plan ahead and know how to mitigate or manage this. And those are some of the technological management that we can use to mitigate this, even at that level. Now, we also talk about animals. Animal husbandry. It's imperative as well, where we know what's happening in Nigeria now, where the issue of the herdsmen coming to the local setting, and then all the political dynamics that is affecting it. Now, these are bigger on a larger scale. However, on a local level, where you and I deal with the women on the streets. Now, how do we begin to empower them and access them to create food for us? It's empowerment. Encourage them when they farm. Farming is big for them. Now, giving them, access to funds, or helping them to create corporations where they can have access to funds, where they can eventually improve their farm products. Probably hire more helps for them to produce more, or farm more, produce more, and not just producing, but also storing as well. Storage is important, because one of the biggest issues that we have in Africa is storage. I mean, a lot of people produce products, but over 45 to 60% of them are lost alone in storage. Talk less of transportation. And that's because what? On the road, the roads are bad, access to good roads are poor. So these are some of the things where putting together a cooperation where you can, one, help them advocate, to help them have access to resources, And three, help them store their products is a good way to helping them, achieve food security. Now, health, and that's where I come in. Health is wealth. Because if any of us is sick today, we will not be here. So we understand that if you talk about health, and I would say this, women are the custodians of our heritage. And when I mean heritage, meaning those who were being born, the information, genetic otherwise, or even cultural and social information that will transfer onto other generations are held and handled and sustained by women. So, if you want a healthy society, you need a healthy woman. And that's a fact. So, how do you begin to achieve sustaining healthy women? One, making her happy. I know people do that. Making her happy and making her healthy. And one of the ways you can help to achieve that is making her children, her products, happy as well and healthy. Why? Because one of the biggest concerns of death rates in age less than 5 years old is pneumonia. And those children die in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. And how can we achieve that? Morbidity and mortality, immunization, huge. The government has tried to do as much as that, but we need to find ways to sustain that and advocate for them, and even find ways to press on the government to ensure that these things are achieved, are made accessible to them. So if their child is healthy and well, obviously, guess what? The mother is also healthy and well, because the mother who carries the child after 6 months or after 9 months and the child dies is an unhappy woman, and that woman is not productive. So these are some of the issues that we need to address. Maternity. Infant mortality rate, 1. Death rate. In fact, 803 women die on a daily basis every day globally. You understand? And maternal mortality rate for the African woman, especially in Nigeria, is huge. I mean, when we have a maternal mortality rate here of 24, that's gone up to 26 now, in Nigeria it's about 1,000 to 2,000 per 100,000 births. And that's preposterous. And these are some of the things we need to achieve, we need to address and pay attention to. Now, employment. We talked a little bit about it. Employment. Employment creates economic security, because a woman who is employed is economically secure, and she's viable, and she's productive. And then guess what? She has the capacity to begin to think and be ingenious in creating ways to achieve the sustainable developmental plans that have been put in place. Because like I said earlier on, the future of science is women. We know that they can achieve so much. We know that if given equal opportunity, they can also contribute immensely to the growth and development of any society and any nation. So security is itself, physical security. We understand that from the home to the community, to the society, and globally. I'm not just an advocate for women, because it sounds like that's what I'm doing. But in all sincerity, it's imperative that these things exist. Because when there's famine, and there's strife, and there's war, the hanging fruits, and pardon my saying that, are easier to feel the brunt of what's going on. And those are the women and children. So that's why it's important that, one, for you to achieve growth in that essence, creating security even at a home level, at the community level, at a social level, there has to be peace. Peace encouraged, peace sustained, peace managed by the system. And each and every one of us involved in this, and we have to contribute. Because it's not just a mandate anymore, it's something that we have to address and pay attention to. Now, obviously, climate change. The climate is changing. Global warming is coming up for so many other reasons. How do we achieve that? Does the woman on the average level know that there's global change? Because if all of a sudden there's flood in her locality, she never understands that. She never understands that, and all of a sudden the crop that she built and farmed for are all washed off. How will she know? Encourage them, improve their awareness, and tell them these are some of the things that are happening, and that you can plan for the changes that are coming. And early warning signs, including tornado coming. We live in America. When there's a tornado coming, we understand that, we can tell. But when there's a tornado coming or a hurricane coming in Nigeria, or we know what happened in Delta State. Nobody knows that. And all of a sudden, the poor women or the poor individuals are washed afloat and their crops and their homes destroyed. So early warning detection is also important, that we can create samples or apps of whatever means to help them achieve this. So not to take too much time, but in as much as we need to do what we have to do, we need to create principles and sustainable goals that are realistic, achievable, reproducible, sustainable, and can be improved and advanced. Thank you.